Hey everybody, and welcome to DGS Productions. I'm your host, D.G.S. This past weekend we got to see a truly unique experience over in Estonia for the 2017 Estonian Open, brought to us by D.G.S. I gotta say, the scores for this tournament were fairly surprising. I think there were multiple factors that had to do with this. As I mentioned already, this was a very unique tournament. We had some unique OBs, we had some very small landing zones, so it really turned out to be a very interesting tournament. And I'm not so sure it was one that really put on the display of what these pros can do. We also had a lot of wind, it looked like, and I think the main thing that I noticed was the baskets. Now the baskets themselves looked to be almost very similar to an Innova disc catcher. However, they didn't seem to catch the same way as an Innova disc catcher. And I don't know if that's due to a couple different reasons. With baskets, it could be the chain weight, it could be the way the chains are grouped, it could be the way the chains kind of come together at the bottom. I know that is sometimes what people attribute to spit outs, or the way that the disc falls in the end of the putt. I don't really think it had too much, but I think it did get into the head of some of those players. One of those players being Ricky Wysocki. In round one coverage, we see him miss his initial putt on hole one. That's really a tap in, I would say, less than 5 feet. And it just bounces completely back out. Now this might have been due to wind, might have been due to the angle at which he putted, this might have been due to lack of concentration. But from there on, we see a huge lack of confidence on these baskets. His round two score obviously not being up to the snuff he wanted, and allowing Paul to really take that step forward. I believe he went OB 3 or 4 times in round two, definitely not helping him get to that top card. And then in round 3, he makes a big surge to come back and take the second spot, and actually tie for that second spot with Eagle McMahon. Interesting thing about that tie is, initially, if you listen to the live stream, they talk about maybe they would do a 3 or 4 hole playoff. If you watch the live stream though, you see that Ricky and Eagle and the tournament director kind of come to a different solution. I think Ricky and Eagle were kind of done. It was mainly for the trophy, and so they ended up doing a CTP on hole 1. They discussed before the throw that there's no OB, so no real reason to not go for a roller or a huge shot to get to this 500 foot plus, and a big steep grade uphill at that. And so Ricky pulls out his vision, throws a roller, kind of gets it down a little bit too up and down, and not as much angle as he probably should have put on, but still gets it up there. And Eagle then goes for a huge 360 drive, actually slips and falls in his follow through, but gets it to the basket, probably I would say within the circle, if not circle's edge. So therefore, Eagle taking that sole possession of that second spot and that second place trophy. But final results of the Estonian Open, we had Paul McBeth taking the championship, followed closely by Eagle McMahon and Ricky Wysocki tied for second. Not to be discounted, coming in fourth is David Felberg, shooting a -10 on round 3, tying both Ricky and Paul for the course record. And tied for 5th place, we had Austin Turner and Simon Lizotte. Austin Turner really showed up in this tournament. In round 3, we get to see him jump to the top card and really kind of line up with Paul, with Simon, and with Eagle, and we get to see how he deals with that pressure and with that huge gallery. On this last day, we see a gallery consistent of hundreds of people. Austin starts out very, very well, and then we start to see fatigue set in, or maybe some nerves get to him. We see some miscues off the tee. On hole 16, Austin Turner has a putt for 2 and ends up 3-putting to take a 4. That 2 would have solidified his bid for second place maybe, but on hole 17 comes right back and makes a huge jump up from, I want to say 50 or 60 feet to sink his birdie. On hole 18, once again, he's got a chance to take outright 5th position, leaving Simon Lizotte in the 6th position. However, misses his circle's edge putt on hole 18 to tie Simon Lizotte for that 5th position. Speaking of Simon Lizotte, I feel like we got to see a little bit of a flashback to either 2 or 3 years ago Simon Lizotte. It felt like initially out of the gun, Simon Lizotte in round 3 was going for everything and really just putting on a show for the crowd. Yes, he was a good amount of strokes away from the lead and from Paul, but I feel like he had a great stake on that 2nd place, but didn't necessarily take it to heart to strive for that. Uncharacteristically, we saw him missing inside the circle putts. We saw him missing some putts that were just on the verge of outside of the circle. And it looks like a lot of his drives just had either a touch too much hyzer on it or came out early. Paul McBeth, on the other hand, was there to win. We see in an interview that Paul McBeth does after his hot round in round 2 that he is not at all happy with his score. And I felt that way too about all the pros. I felt like there was a lot left out there. There was some miscues that just seemed very uncharacteristic, almost as if everybody was just kind of having a casual round or didn't have the time to practice these rounds, so they were making kind of dumb mistakes or mindless mistakes throughout. Part of that coming off of Paul McBeth's putting in round 3. It was fairly lackluster and actually missed inside the circle putts on holes 10, 11, and 12. Ended up coming back for a very significant putt on 13, but then again misses a putt on hole 15, leaving all of these low, which leads me to think that he's still got work to do on his putting game and his standard stance that he's brought back. He has had a lot of success and we've seen him sink those really long putts, but there's still room to improve. Fortunately, Ricky didn't have the success with his putt and the confidence with his putt that he normally does, but I see that kind of reversing. In case you haven't seen by now, there is a couple videos out there with coverage for the rounds. We have first round coverage from Rockstick Production, and we also have then the live stream of the last round, which includes the entirety of the lead card on the last day from them as well. On day 2, they covered the lead card of the FPO, so that's nice to see the FPO get some love over in Estonia and in Europe. And then there are some other videos out there. So there's a couple of interview videos that Rockstick put out. I will put a link in the description below for the pre-recorded live stream and for the round 1 coverage brought to us by Rockstick. I wanted to take a couple moments to make some comments on the live stream and the YouTube feed that we saw from Rockstick Production. These guys are from Estonia. I got in contact with them via Facebook and went back and forth with them for a little while. They do normally, if you look at their channel, they have very low views and they do a lot of cycling tournaments. So these guys were really excited to have, I think they have close to 4,000 views on this video alone. And what I told these guys is I really appreciated this coverage. This is the live stream coverage that I want to see in America. This felt very fluid. It felt almost like watching the Olympics, and maybe where you get different color commentators, but the balance between color commentary and play-by-play was great. Their English was great. They had a couple ums and uhs, and there were some miscues also on the cameras, maybe shooting at the wrong basket or not seeing where the disc landed. But those were all minor things. The big thing to me is that it was a very cohesive unit. The entirety of the time, there wasn't really too many points where I got bored or where I was tired of hearing one person speak, because I was listening in on the action and I was getting vital information to the course. Be that background, be that stories from what happened earlier in the day, or looks into previous cards. They do that quite a bit with Ricky Wysocki not being on the lead card, and with David Fehlberg making a search. The graphics were fine, nothing to really write home about, but it is something fairly similar to what we see from Terry Miller, the disc golf guy. I just really liked that these guys were in a booth. We could go back and forth between different things. They didn't go from coverage to coverage, but they would go back to a single shot of just hole 1, which I felt like was a great kind of tie-in. They do that a lot in golf tournaments where you might see just the green of hole 18 and you'll see the people walking back and forth, and that's kind of the downtime where they're just talking about, you know, what else is happening that day or whatever kind of story there, just in the downtime while people are walking to their lives. And I really appreciated that. That wasn't something that I thought about would make it that much more cohesive, but it definitely did. All in all, I feel like a lot of notes can be taken from this coverage. Maybe not necessarily post-production coverage, except for maybe in the commentary booth, but as far as live stream goes, this was very cohesive, something that I find a lot more watchable and a lot more pleasant to watch and sit and watch, as opposed to just having on in the background. And that's our show. As always, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and check us out on Facebook for all your disc golf news throughout the week. And until next round, I'm D.G.S.